Hi everybody and welcome to another RCGP Masterclass. This series has been created to help answer some of those frequently asked questions that many of us get towards the end of our training, providing you with real lived experience and top tips from a range of GPs across a broad range of different subject areas. My name is Anthony, I'm an ST3 GP trainee and I'm chair of the college's AIT community, and I'm your host today. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to be joined by Professor Mike Holmes, who's going to be talking about partnership. Mike is one of the vice chairs at the RCGP for membership and international. He's a GP partner at the Haxby Group in York and Hull, and is also an honorary professor at the university there as well. Hi, Mike. How are you doing today?
Hi, Anthony. Yeah, really good, thanks. It's great to be joining you on this call today.
So this session is going to be all around partnership, and obviously as people approach the end of their training, they're going to be having lots of different thoughts around what they want to do with the rest of their career. What would kind of your initial kind of outline statement be around why partnership is a great career choice for some people?
Yeah, well, I think you've hit the nail on the head straight away. This is about what's right for you as an individual. I mean, I finished my training, gosh, almost 20 years ago, and went straight into partnerships, straight from my VTS. And I guess, you know, I've been really lucky to be part of a great partnership from my perspective. It's given me everything I needed. And I think, you know, the key things for me is around being part of a team. It's almost like a family, really. The team that's very close, very committed, very values driven. We're all kind of have the same outlook on what we want to get from general practice and what we want to deliver to our patients. And I think one of the other key things for me is, you know, ownership. You have ownership of the practice, of the partnership. You feel very close to the staff. You feel like you have influence in terms of how to evolve and make change within the practice. I think we're very committed to it, which for me, that's really important, just to be committed to the place I work and be able to nurture that and grow that and take it in a direction that feels right for our population and our patients. We have continuity of care. I do accept there are challenges around that right across general practice, but we try and maximize that where we can. And I think, you know, I also personally enjoy the sort of business aspect of it, you know, understanding the contracts and you know, I've tried to work with my partners to develop the business and as you say, we've moved. When I started, we were just in one city in York, and over the last 20 years, we've moved into another city, and you know, it's given us the opportunity to deliver care to meet our aspirations and hopes. You know, we've tried to deliver care in under-doctored, deprived coastal regions in the north, and that's felt really good, and we've only really been able to do that because we were in partnership. So I think there's so many positives, but I'll come back to the point that I think it's about what you want as an individual.
And you mentioned going into partnership straight out of GP training, and I think for a lot of people that might feel like quite a daunting prospect today. At the time, how did you know that, or how did you think it felt like the right thing for you at the time? Do you think there is a right time to think about going into partnership as things are today? Is it better to have a few years of experience under your belt, or is it something that you still could access at any point during your career?
So let's go. I'll start with my situation. So I was, you know, I was slightly older. I'd intercalated during medical school. I'd gone straight to medical school. We didn't do gap years, or not very often back in when I trained. And I went, did an intercalated year. And then I started doing surgical specialty training. So I spent 3 years on a surgical rotation, and during that time realized that actually I didn't want to spend the rest of my career working in hospitals. You know, I just that just emerged over the course of that period of time. Loved the surgery, but just felt it wasn't right for me. And so when I got to the end of my VTS, I was probably, 7 years postgraduate. So I'd had a bit of time to look around, to try different things. And for me, an opportunity arose in a practice that I really liked. I hadn't been a trainee in that practice, but it was recommended to me by people I trusted. And it just felt right for me at my time in life. I was about to get married, and it just felt like a natural step. And I joined a big partnership. So I think one of the things that does put people off, or can put people off, is taking on all that responsibility, or that perceived responsibility, very early on. And I joined a big partnership for that. At that time, it was 20,000 patients. It had 13 partners, and I was looked after. I was protected to an extent. It wasn't like I was running a single-handed practice on my own. There was people around me. There was a team around me, and I was able to settle in. It was a steep learning curve. There's no question about that. But I felt protected and mentored, and I had that support. And I think that's really important. I think, if I was advising anybody on what to look for in a partnership, that I think would be right at the top of my list. Does it feel right for you? Are you ready for it? And are you going to get the support that you're going to need?
Yeah, I think that's something that probably applies to salaried jobs as well, or really any role that you're going into, is making sure that A, it feels right for you, B, that you're going to get appropriate support when you're starting out in that role. Yeah, so I think that's good advice, and I guess it comes back to just how any GP job is so variable, and what's right for one person might not be right for another. And also, because we've all had quite different experiences of training, we might have done other things before or taken time out during training. Actually, we're all reaching the end of like getting our CCT and MRCGP with different background stories, which will affect kind of the choices that we make there afterwards as well. Mm. In terms of partnership, you've mentioned kind of a lot of kind of the things that you enjoy about it. Are there any particular skills that you think make a good partner, things that you might have wished you'd known before you started out, or things that you've learned that have become really essential parts of your kind of repertoire of skills over the years?
Well, I think there's no doubt that you develop a skill set as a partner that you may not develop as a salaried doctor. I think the key is your core clinical skill set. I think I worked pretty much full-time clinically for the first 10 years in partnership. So I built up that clinical skill set. I was allowed to do it in a protected area, and able to do it in a protected environment. I also did out of hours. So, people talk about the 10,000 hours or whatever. I definitely got that in those first few years as a partner. And I feel really privileged to do that, especially when you're surrounded by that level of support. But I guess what you do learn is about people and managing people, and making sure that people have what they want, how to create positive, happy working environments, maybe a bit about employment law. That's definitely been a feature. I think understanding contracts, GMS contracts, PMS, APMS, how they work, how they fit into the health and social care commissioning environment, how to manage accounts and things like that. They're all essential skills. They don't need them from day one. You develop them over time. And I think the other thing that I've developed, because it's an interest of mine, two things actually that I developed. I've been able to develop special clinical interests. So my practice supported me to develop an in-house vasectomy service, which I've been doing for 12 years. And that's been really good to have that clinical niche, if you like. I think that's felt really positive. The other aspect is leadership. So my partnership has supported me to do further training in leadership. I did a master's in leadership in practice time, and that's really been beneficial. And now I have this sort of portfolio career where I do some clinical work, I do my special interest, and I'm involved in leadership both in and out of the practice. And that having that partnership umbrella around me, I feel really supported, I feel really safe, and I feel like I can really contribute both to the practice and to the external environment.
Yeah, I think that sense of ownership it must be, if you're in the right practice with the right partners around you and the right team, must be a great place to kind of work and thrive as a person as well.
I think so. I think it's certainly been, you can tell I'm very positive about it, and I feel lucky to have had a positive experience. But I guess some of that is about the timing. Something is about how you choose practices, and I think that's worth talking about in things that are important when you think about which practice to be a partner in. And if I had to prioritize that, I think the first bit is the people. Do the people in the partnership? Do their values align with yours? Are you going to fit? Are you going to get on? Can you work with these people for the next 10, 20 years or whatever? And can you commit to that organization? And I think that's, for me, that's the most important thing. I think, you know, the legals and the contracts and the partnership deeds and the, you know, whatever the earnings might be, etc. I think they're less of a priority. It's definitely about people fit, values, and the direction that they want to take the partnership in.
Mm. So I guess that's one of the kind of challenges potentially is around people as well, and I guess as humans there's always naturally going to be potential tensions at times. Are there any kind of key challenges that you've experienced being a partner that might be quite different from the experience of being like a salaried or a locum GP, and any kind of tips for kind of addressing those as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question I get asked is, well, how do you make, you know, we're a big partnership, and how do you make decisions? You know, there's 23 partners in my practice. So how do you make decisions? And I think, you know, a lot of it is we never vote. You know, I think it's consensus decision making. It's having the right level of debate, finding time, making time for that right level of debate, having people who go in and research aspects, whether it's a new service that we want to get involved in, whether it's in a change to the contract, whether it's you know, whether there's an HR issue or whatever. You know, we've got people that we trust going and looking at that and reporting back and allowing us to make a balanced decision in the best interest of everybody. So I think that, you know, that is one of the challenges. I have seen in not in my own partnership, but I have seen in other partnerships where things can go wrong, you know, and it often is relationship breakdown. I think that you know, you must work hard to try and maintain that, and I do get there are situations where that doesn't happen, you know, where partners leave and leave partnerships exposed. I think that can be a big risk, and there are financial risks associated with partnership. I mean, we haven't really talked about the financial buy-in to practices, but you know, you can be left in a difficult situation financially, and you must take really good advice about how to protect yourself from that. And because I have seen partners exposed to significant risk, so I think that is, you know, that'd be one of the biggest bits of advice. Whilst I said, you know, making sure the relationships and the person fit and it's the right place for you is probably the most important thing. You do need to take care of making sure the legals and the partnership deeds give you the level of protection that you might need should the worst case scenario happen.
Yeah. So I think we kind of touched on a few key things that people need to think about. So one, the people, and making sure your values align with the other partners there and that you think you could work well in that environment. The second is kind of thinking about the legal and financial advice that you might get when you're thinking about joining a partnership. If somebody has come to the end of their training or really at any stage is thinking about either applying or has been offered a partnership, what are some of the other key things that you think they need to kind of do their homework on or due diligence around to further research whether it's the right place and the right choice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you can ask around. I think that's probably quite important, you know, so the experience of others in that system, what their views are on that partnership, is probably good information to have. You can do internet searches. You can look at, you know, their performance of the practice, you know, how have they done in QOF, how have they done in other clinical indicators. CQC is publicly available. You know, that I think it's definitely worth looking at all of those things. You know, if you can do locum shifts or work as a salary doctor for a short time in a practice, just so you get a feel for how it works, how the systems operate. You know, is the clinical system one that you can fit into? How you know, what's the workload like? Because that can vary, as we all know. It can vary. Different practices have different systems. You know, we try and really protect the GP workload. We have longer consultations. We have multi-professional teams that take away some of the work, and I think it's important just to get a feel for that. What is life really going to be like in that practice? You know, and I guess geography is important. Is it near where you live? Is it an area that you want to settle down in? You know, I think, you know, because at the end of the day, lifestyle is important. Work-life integration is important, and I think it's got to fit with your hopes and ambitions for your own life, not just your professional life.
Yeah, I think really good advice, and I think again a lot of it really applicable not just to people who might be thinking about partnership, but any kind of salaried or long-term post. I think those are kind of tips that are important to think about before you take on any of those kind of roles. Is really thinking about whether it's the right fit for you. I guess with partnership, there's kind of the expectation that it will be a longer relationship than you might expect from necessarily a salaried doctor. And you said obviously kind of been in partnership for many years now. We've kind of mentioned the importance of relationships. Are there any other top tips that you would give people for kind of maintaining that relationship over such a long period of time?
Yeah, I'll come to that. I just wanted to pick up one thing you just mentioned there about the expectation that this would be for a long period of time. And yes, I think that is true. But there are safety mechanisms. You know, I think when you enter a partnership, there's always a period of mutual assessment, or there should be. And that's usually about 6 months. So it's not, you know, when you agree to join, it's not, it's not a forever decision. You can change your mind, and there should be mechanisms for you to say, well, look, this isn't right for me. I'm not going to go forward beyond the 6 month point. You'd hope and like to think that that happens rarely, but it should be an option for you. So I think that's really important. I think I would really stress that, you know, that there are exit options when you go into this, and that's absolutely right. Just recap the rest of the question there for me, Anthony.
Just you've been a partner for quite a number of years now, and you've mentioned the importance of relationships within that. A lot of people often refer to kind of partnership as like a second marriage. Is there any top tips that you give people for kind of maintaining that healthy relationship over such a long period of time?
Yeah, I think the best tip I can give you is just to keep talking. We kind of I don't think you can overemphasize the importance of communication. Where things go wrong, it's because people aren't communicating properly. So I think it's about understanding why decisions need to be made, explaining the rationale, keeping people informed, having open debate, not being too rigid in your mindset. Because, you know, one of the things my leadership training taught me is that having multiple perspectives into a decision gives you a stronger decision at the end of the day. So that would be my top tip. I think open debate, open-mindedness, and you know, relational leadership, I think, is important. So getting to know people, spending time with people. You know, I remember in the early days of my partnership, and actually we still do it. We have away days, we go away together, we spend time bonding, we spend time getting to know and understanding how each other works. And, you know, that's never time poorly spent. I think it's so important. And you recognize that actually people are human beings, and they have things going on in their lives, and you know, understanding that and taking that into account when you're working is really important.
I think that's probably a great place to kind of draw things to a close, unless you have any other kind of top tips or takeaways that you'd like people to kind of think about if they are considering a career in partnership.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same advice I'd give anybody starting out. You know, make sure you find something that's right for you. Make sure you find something that enthuses you, and that you can be positive about. I think, you know, it's a tough environment out there. There's no question about that. You know, we work in challenging circumstances. It can be high pressure. And I think what I want to hear is I want to hear more about the good things in general practice. So make sure you're happy. You can be positive about it. Accept that there'll be bad days and tough days, but on the whole, you're in a place that you're happy to be in, and can talk about the positives.
Yeah. Well, I think, definitely, I think you've painted a really positive picture of what partnership can be. And I think for me, like thinking about those relationships, thinking about the impact that you can have as a partner, and as you've experienced that scale as well. And then thinking about the opportunities that can come with that, and also thinking about how, yes, it can be a long-term relationship, but there are those safety mechanisms in place, or should be, to help you kind of with that adjustment period as well. And it doesn't have to be kind of a long-term decision if it turns out that it doesn't work for you or work for the partnership that you're joining.
Yeah, I think that's right. Thanks, Anthony.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. And thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you for another RCGP Masterclass soon.